that need to be followed up on. But he is here to answer some questions and
well, Mr. Draymond, if it can't be done this evening, it's Weaver, but it's not urgent that I hear it tonight. I just want to make sure that we hear a report on this, or we receive a report on this.
Absolutely.
And if possible, some options, rather than just a recount of what has occurred, but also are there any options that will help these residents and our use of the Riverwalk at the same time. There may not be, but let's find out.
I can suggest bringing a report back. That would be easiest for all of us, I think.
Let's agendize it so we can discuss it freely and get some community input at the same time. So
Bring it
I hope
back
you're not
quickly.
terribly disappointed, Mr. Ahern, but we'll call you up at a future date as soon as it can be prepared.
Second item, Mr. Mayor, is I'd like to just make note of a city employee, and I think it's been in the press, but I think it's worth noting because it just captures the imagination. And we have an employee named Ralph Walrath who works in libraries and has worked in our libraries starting as a volunteer in 1980, and he just celebrated his 95th birthday. Talk about a work ethic. That's quite a work ethic. I think we have a photo that's up. I can't tell if
it is.
It's up. It's
yes.
Hard to see from here. But Mr. Walrath, who really doesn't like a lot of fanfare, but I think we have to present a little. He's a Glendale resident, and he just celebrated his 95th birthday on January the 17th. And he became a library staff member officially in 1983, starting at a wage of $3.35 an hour. And he began volunteering at the Chevy Chase Branch Library for 3 years, starting in 1980. As an interesting note, Mr. Weaver, I think you may appreciate this. In 1933, he enrolled in Glendale Junior College, which was at that time located at the site of our central library. So there's been this recurring library motif throughout this man's life. Glendale Junior College used to be located on the site of our current central library at Harvard. And he was the last graduating class from that library at that site before it moved up the hill. And lastly, he notes that in 1925, he and his family took the red car from Burbank to Glendale in order to witness the opening of the then Alexander Theater, which we know as the Alex Theater, in 1925. So, Mr. Walrath, thank you for your service to this city and your longevity. We celebrate both, and thank you for being there for us. It's pretty terrific.
You got more?
I do. One last thing. This last thing has to do with what has been going on in the Montrose Shopping Park over the last few days. And I want to address it because it has come back to the council and to me, and I'm extremely concerned about the reports I'm receiving. And I made a few notes that I'm going to refer to. The reports have been coming back from the Montrose merchants about the activities of our neighborhood services staff in the last week with their what is being referred to as window sign violation sweep. I'm even more concerned, and that occurred last week, and I'm even more concerned that neighborhood services then took another bite at the apple and returned yesterday to conduct yet another visit to this district. Now, at the risk of the obvious irony here of stating that I agree 100% with the article in the Glendale News Press and the editorial as well, I must say I do agree with both their article, the tone of their article, and their editorial, and I have to make a comment or two. I wonder whether our neighborhood services folks understand that at post-Christmas time in any retail district, let alone in this economy, that it is make or break time. for our small businesses, and in particular our mom and pop businesses throughout the city. See, Christmas season is over, and the shopping season is over. And now folks are at home trying to figure out how they're going to pay the bills for the things they purchased at Christmas, let alone preparing to pay their income tax and so on, and their property taxes and so on. So you wonder what on earth our city is thinking when we conduct a district-wide sweep of mom-and-pop stores at this particular time. And does our neighborhood services department not remember that we contract with a board of directors in this business improvement district to help with compliance issues of this very sort? And let's talk about what these gross violations are that they found. Are they public safety related? No. No, they're not. No, our city seems particularly concerned that a restaurant incorrectly posts its daily specials on their daily special board. My goodness, what will the world come to? And let's not overlook that neighborhood services caught the local pet store with catastrophe of catastrophes, a bird cage in their entryway for sale. And, of course, how will we ever function as a city with the local children's bookstore, the oldest children's bookstore in America, according to the New York Times, if they are allowed to have a chalkboard in front of their store which says storybook hour, 11 o'clock. This is what our inspectors are pursuing in the Montrose Shopping Park. This is what we're paying them to do in the Montrose Shopping Park. Not one bite at the apple last week, but a second bite at the apple just yesterday. That's what they're working on. So my message to our city and our neighborhood services manager specifically is the following. Use some common sense, as the citizens we all work for would expect. And most importantly, keep in mind that our fellow citizens are struggling to keep their businesses and their jobs right now. And please, please use your heads to prioritize those issues which are critical and those that are simply shooting ducks in a barrel in our city's neighborhood business districts. Now, beyond that, I would like to ask that we do two things. That we ask our Director of Planning, who has inherited this section of our city, neighborhood services, to please conduct some outreach to the merchants up there. They are hopping mad, and they are hopping mad with this city. And so we need to conduct some kind of public outreach there with the property owners and the merchants there. This ordinance that we're, enforcing with these, bird cages and special signs for the menus and things like that was put in place in 1972. Retail, I think, has changed a bit in our city since then. I mean, it predates the Glendale Galleria. So if we can we contact the MSPA board, who we contract with, and get on their agenda to set up some kind of a meeting that you do so well, Mr. Hagani, you and your department, doing this public outreach. Mr. Quintero always refers to you as our Dr. Phil, and I think that's an apt description. And see what's on their mind and how we can look at this ordinance. Perhaps it's time to take a look at it. We've heard complaints not only from that district, but from Mid-Brand and other areas as well. So I think it is time that we take a look at this. And secondly, I'd like to ask that for a second on the dais to make that instruction and see if we can get information back to then look at this ordinance and see if there are any changes we need to make in it.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Weaver?
On a little different note, Friday you beat me to the punch when I couldn't be here. My son finally gave me a granddaughter. 37 hours and 15 minutes of labor. The baby was supposed to be due on Thursday, but didn't come till Friday morning. So, very happy for him. I wondered if he would ever get married, let alone have a child. I mean, he surprised me with both. Very grateful for my son and what he's done. 3 grandchildren in 2.5 years. That's really moving it, so quite happy. The other thing I would like to do is adjourn the meeting tonight in the memory of our retired reserve officer, Robert DeBach. He served here about 17 years. He was hired in 1999. And tell you a few things about him. He was the Reserve Academy class of 67. He received many formal commendations during his career. He was honored for his professionalism as a reserve officer by LA County Peace Officers Association on 2 occasions. During a 2-month period, he was commended for making 3 individual felony robbery arrests. He was also recognized as the Glendale Reserve Officer of the Year in '92. When the Northridge earthquake hit here, his home had significant damage, but he let that go and he came down here to work at restoring law and order down here. He was also on call for the College Hills fire, the West Glen Oaks industrial fire, the Rodney King riots, the Paula Street shooting, the Pavelka shooting, all those things. And he was also called in on the Glendale train wreck. He lived over 200 miles away, and he got down here for that event. He's been on the gang detail, the Brand Boulevard foot beat, a special enforcement detail, deployed to over 200 high school football games, 30 junior high and high school graduations, multiple DUI sweeps and checkpoints. And a member of Operation Silent Night and Swift Intruder, where we arrested numerous Vineland gang members and associates. He was in the insurance business, and 3 years ago moved to Central California. He's been commuting from Oakhurst during that time to continue his involvement in the Reserve Officer Corps. 200 miles to do it. He's served approximately 10,000 hours of service to the agency. All I want to say about the Reserve Officer Corps is they do it on a volunteer basis while having their own businesses, whatever they do, whether they're engineers or businessmen or insurance agents or whatever. They volunteer to do this. They're extremely invaluable to the police department. Somebody like this, for the amount of time that he gave to this city as a volunteer, it's absolutely tremendous. I knew him. I know the entire police department will greatly miss him. I'd like to adjourn his memory.
You?
That's it.
I just have a brief announcement. Many of you are familiar with my younger brother, Rafi Najarian. He comes before you. He's in uniform a lot of the time. He was here just a few weeks ago with the flags and the young interpreter that is going from Glendale to Iraq. Well, he and his wife, Arda, were blessed with their first child just this last Friday, so I am an uncle and very proud of it. Now, Ruffy's a funny guy, I've got to tell you. We asked him what he was going to name the baby, and he kept referring to him as Hercules, little Hercules. And I kept thinking, Rafi, are you talking about, the Greek god and, strength and all that? He wouldn't answer. And then I said, well, maybe it's not the Greek god. Maybe it's the warship, the C-130 Hercules, because he is in the Air Force. He's that kind of guy. But cooler heads prevailed, and Shant Stephen Najarian was born on Friday. There's little Shant, and he's doing well. The mother is doing well. And my congratulations to Rafi and Arda and everyone else in the family. They're doing great. So.
Oh, wait.
Yes.
I'll bring in pictures next week. I haven't seen the child yet. They didn't come home till Sunday afternoon.
You're more than welcome. Births are always welcomed.
And the baby's name is Aurora from the Disney movie.
Very good.
They're going to call her
You can
Aurora.
bring in your graphics and.
No graphics, just a picture of the baby, just like everybody who wants to see this baby.
Now, I
It's
asked-
a weaver. I'll tell you, it's a weaver.
I asked Rafi, Rafi, are you going to give me some cigars to pass out to City Council? He says no. Being a dentist, cigars are a leading cause of oral cancer. But he did give me, It's a Boy toothbrushes to hand out to my colleagues. So, Mr. Draymond, if you'll pass that down to Mr. Weaver and
What are you expecting from me?
Mr. Quintero, Ms. Beers. It's a Boy toothbrushes. Leave it to my brother Rafi.
Very nice.
Okay.
I'll give it to my grandson.
That's all I have. That we'll have more coming. The rest of the staff. This is all I could wheedle out of him before the meeting. Okay. Anything from staff? All right. Let's move on then.
At 5 on the agenda is consent item. The following are routine and may be acted upon by one motion. Any member of the council or the audience requesting separate consideration may do so by making such request before a motion is proposed.
Our motion.
Move the consent calendar at 5.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Council members Draymond?
Yes.
Friedman?
Yes.
Quintero?
Yes.
Weaver?
Aye.
Mayor Najarian.
Yes. Next item, please.
Next item would be oral communications. There are no cards for announcements.
Okay, this was the 15-minute portion of oral communications. We will, the 3-minute portion of oral communications. We will defer to a later part of the agenda for the full 5-minute portion. Next item, please.
Next item at 8 under action items is Director of Community Services and Parks regarding Community Services and Parks Department grants portfolio. At 8A1 is a motion to note and file report.
Thank you. Mr. Duran.
Ms. Mayor Najarian, members of the City Council, Ms. Beers, we are happy today to provide you with a report regarding our current grant portfolio, which is currently robust. It totals $11,538,000. These are competitive grants that we have to compete with other jurisdictions for. This portfolio does not include the CDBG program. It's a way to effectively leverage our CIP funds here in the city of Glendale. And while we're doing a pretty good job right now, we have a pretty impressive grant portfolio. The future does not look as bright as our current portfolio. I do want to introduce Mark Sturdivant, a senior administrative analyst in our department and grant writer extraordinaire, to provide you with more details on our portfolio. If I could.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Najarian, members of council. I'm Mark Sturdivant, Senior Administrative Analyst for the Community Services and Parks Department. Perhaps the most significant responsibility I have in the department is that of administrating our grants program. And since I came to work for the city about 4 years ago, I have made fairly regular visits to our Parks and Recreation Commission to provide them with information on what we refer to as our grants portfolio. Recently, I made a presentation to the Commission, and it was thought that it might be valuable for me to come before you at some appropriate time to give you this same information with an idea of demonstrating to you the emphasis that we place on grant funding for many of our park projects. This is our grants portfolio. As you can see, we currently administer about $11.5 million in grant funding. And if you combine that with grants which are not expressly ours, but on which we collaborate and from which we benefit, such as the PLACE grant with the LA County Bicycle Coalition or the California River Parkways grant with Northeast Trees, the total that our residents benefit from is about $13 million. And these funds come from a number of sources. They come from California State Parks for our Prop 40 and Prop 84 grants. They come from Los Angeles County for our Prop A grants. Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy also provides funding from Prop 40 and Prop 84. We tap into the federal government through the Recreation Trails Program. Caltrans has provided us with a community-based planning grant, and the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health is the administrator of the PLACE grant. And very briefly, what I'd like to do is simply bring you up to date on the status of some of our projects that are strictly grant-funded projects, projects that we would not be doing if it were not for the grant funds. We have funds from the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy and LA County for the seismic retrofit of the La Messenger barn. The total amount between the two grants is nearly $1.5 million. And as you can see by the photo in the upper left corner, this project is currently underway. It's the first critical step for making the building safe for public use and perhaps one day turning it into a nature education center. And this project is entirely grant funded. Prop A is also providing funds for Phase 1 of the Glendale Narrows Riverwalk. As you know, this project will include nearly a half-mile of multi-use trail, as well as 3 small parks along Glendale's portion of the LA River. These funds are being combined with $1.1 million that was received by our partner Northeast Trees from the California River Parkways Grant Program. We're currently in plan check on this project, and we expect to begin construction on Phase 1 before very much longer. One of the projects that has been getting a lot of attention lately is a project that's funded through a grant from Caltrans. This is for master planning of phases 2 and 3 of Riverwalk. The second phase of Riverwalk will run from Flower Street to the Verdugo Wash and connect with phase 1 to give us nearly a mile-long riverfront amenity. And phase 3 of the project deals with the possibility of placing bridges over the Verdugo Wash and the LA River to connect Riverwalk with the North Atwater neighborhood of Los Angeles and with Griffith Park. And this planning document is now 90% complete, and we will be bringing it to you for your review in the very near future. The Recreational Trails Program, it's a federal program that's administered by California State Parks, is going to provide us with funds for our first ever ADA accessible outdoor recreational trail, which will circle a portion of the Glendale Sports Complex. Because this trail will provide access to users who otherwise would not have had a chance to enjoy this type of outdoor experience, such as the disabled, and seniors, and young children, we call this the San Rafael Hills Mountain Dew Trail. That's Mountain Dew, dew with a D-O. And we plan to combine this with a grant that we've received from the 5th District, a competitive trails grant from Supervisor Antonovich, and this is going to pay for what we're calling an intermediate level trail in the hills above the sports complex. We've named it the Catalina Verdugo Trail in honor of one of our area's earliest residents, and right now we're in the planning stages on that, but we hope that we will be under construction on both these trails sometime this summer. The Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy is also providing us with funds to study the development of an overnight campground, or perhaps campgrounds, in the city of Glendale. We've been spending a lot of time combing our open space, looking for possible sites in the Verdugo Mountains, the San Rafael Hills, and in Deukmejian Wilderness Park. And we're actually going to be holding community outreach meetings on this project next week, Wednesday, February the 2nd at the Dunsmore Community Building up in Dunsmore Park at 7 o'clock, and then the next day, Thursday, February the 3rd, at the Pacific Community Center in Pacific Park. We want residents to come out and tell us what kind of facilities they would like to see in a campground, and also let us know if they have any great locations that we've missed that we should be considering. And by the way, if you're available and interested and you've got some ideas about campgrounds in the city, we'd love to have you come out and join us as well. Funds from the Habitat Conservation Fund are going to provide a nature education program for students from Glendale Unified School District. One of our park naturalists is currently working to put this program together. It's in the formative stages right now, but when it comes online, we'll be bringing students from GUSD up to Deukmejian Park to give them a hands-on nature education experience, and we're calling this program Walk on the Wild Side. In 1992 and again in 1996, the voters of Los Angeles County passed 2 park bond measures. They were both called Proposition A. And one of the benefits of these measures was that they did something very unusual. They contained provisions to fund maintenance, and we don't see that very often. We use our maintenance and servicing grant from LA County for the Glendale Sports Complex. And the way it works is kind of interesting. Each year the county makes a benefit assessment based on the amount of property taxes paid in Glendale, and they place that amount into an account for us. And historically this has amounted to between $180,000 and $190,000 each year. The program began in 1993, but we deferred our funds for the first 6 years and allowed them to accumulate. And over the past 10 years, we have been withdrawing from that account at the rate of about $260,000 a year. Last year we reduced that to $175,000. This year we're going to do the same. The key for us to remember is this. The money from the 1992 Prop A account is going to run out in 2015, and this accounts for about 2/3 of the funds we get from the county to maintain the sports complex. And money from the 1996 Prop A account is going to come to an end in 2018. So the challenge for us over the next few years will be weaning ourselves off of our Prop A funding and establishing circumstances under which we can pay for the maintenance of the sports complex without the help of LA County. Another grant that we're involved with is the Safe and Healthy Streets plan. It's funded through the PLACE grant and is a collaboration between the city and the LA County Bicycle Coalition. It's intended to help make Glendale a safer and friendlier place to walk and ride a bike. And the Safe and Healthy Streets plan is based on the 5 E's. It's a policy document, and the 5 E's are education, encouragement, enforcement, engineering, and evaluation. All of those elements necessary, we think, to make Glendale a safer and friendlier place to walk and ride a bike. And by the way, the plan came before a joint meeting of the Traffic and Parking Commissions and the Planning Commissions yesterday. We had a very good session with those commissions, a lot of good questions asked and answered, a large amount of support from the community, and I'm pleased to report that those commissions unanimously recommended adoption of the plan. It's going to come before the Parks Commission on February 10th, and we expect it to bring it to you in early March. Proposition 84, which the voters approved back in 2006, provided $400 million for park funding through the statewide park development program. This is the most significant park funding program we currently have. There are 2 rounds in this program, each of which will provide $184 million for park projects. For round 1, we submitted an application last year in the amount of $1.7 million for Maryland Avenue Park. This was an extremely competitive grant program. The state received over 500 applications for more than $1 billion in funding. Such is the desire and the need for parks funding in this state. And out of those 500 applications, they awarded 64. So we're very excited that we were selected as a recipient of this grant program, and that money will go to build Maryland Avenue Park. What's next? Well, also courtesy of Prop 84 is the Nature Education Facilities Grant Program. This provides 1 round of $93 million to create new and enhanced nature education facilities up and down the state. We've applied for $2.8 million to finish the work on the Le Mesnager barn and turn it into an interpretive center where our residents can come and learn about the natural and human history of DuPage Wilderness Park and the San Gabriel Mountains. And we should know about this grant in a month or so. Again, this one's very competitive. The state has received over 300 applications, again, for $1 billion in funding. They have only $93 million to give away. They expect to make about 30 awards, so we will keep our fingers crossed and we'll let you know how that one comes out. Over the years, we've had a very nice run with voter-approved park bond measures such as Prop 12, Prop 40, and Prop 84. And while the department's grants portfolio is currently robust, as Mr. Duran said, the future of park bond funding is not very promising. There are no new parks-related bond measures such as Prop 84 or the county's Proposition A, on the horizon. The water bond that was on the November ballot and was removed contained no park funding, and if that measure comes back in 2012, which it may, it's not expected to contain any park funding. So as a result, the department will be challenged to think creatively about future grant applications. This is going to require park projects that include multiple benefits, such as stormwater capture and groundwater recharge, so that we can look at water-related grants as an option, or projects that provide both recreation and transportation benefits, so that perhaps we can tap into transportation-related grants. It'll be up to us to face this challenge by seeking park funding from new and different sources as we move forward. And with that, if there are any questions, I would be happy to try to answer.
Questions? Mr. Quintero.
Well, I don't have any questions, but I do want to comment and start by thanking the director, Jess Duran, and the administrative analyst, Mr. Sturtevant. They've done a tremendous job. I mean, these grants don't fall out of the sky. You can imagine the competition at the state and federal level, and yet year after year they manage to bring these grants to the city of Glendale. So I think both of you guys have done a tremendous job, and the numbers are all here. There's no question about it. Money that's gone directly to provide park facilities for not only the city of Glendale, but actually for this region. So thank you both for doing a wonderful job.
Thank you.
First, I echo Mr. Quintero's comments. And second, I have a slightly off-topic question that I hope that you'll indulge me in. It jumped into my mind since you showed a photo, what looked to be a community garden plot. My question is just whether you could give me a very quick update, because I know it is a little off-topic, about what's happening with the Monterey Garden number 2, which seems to have a few active plots, but otherwise is not landscaped or appearing to move forward very much.
Well, I have to confess, I don't know anything about the Monterey Garden Plot number 2. I did include that photo relating to Maryland Park because one of the amenities that the community asked for in that park was a community garden. Let me turn to my colleagues and see
Who
if...
has the information now? Perhaps we can get it at a later date and we can get a little update.
I think we'll get you a status memo, but that would fall under Hassan Haghani within our community development department, and we'll get you that information.
I'll just wait for the update then. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Comments? Questions? Mr. Draymond?
Yeah, my only comment is, and it's not a question, it's just a comment. Thank you, Jess. Thank you, Mark. Especially in this economy, this is remarkable. It's remarkable work that you continue to do. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Hey, this is a receive and file. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we do have cards on this item. Okay. Donna Martin, followed by BJ Isler.
You can switch the order, right?
If you're all together, you can. And I have Jennifer Hardy. So we have
Yeah,
Jennifer,
we're basically on the same
BJ, and
page.
Donna. So any.
Yeah, I'm commenting on the river walk that you have going in next to my apartment building. Apparently, the arena that you're putting in is like maybe 40 feet from my apartment building. And if it's a public arena, that means that people from anywhere can drive down there with their horse trailers, come in and use the arena. Who's going to guarantee that you're going to water the arena so I don't have to clean my house, my apartment every day? The arena that we have there is not a working arena. It is a turnout. Our horses get turned out there every now and then just to wander around. If the public comes in, then that is going to make more and more dust, and you've got the arenas right next to, maybe 40 feet from 36 apartments with bedrooms, and you've got the walkway coming up and around like this, which is about maybe 20 or 30 feet away from somebody's bedroom, 3 of them, because I live in the 3, and where you have it going up like this, and then you have a round pen right next to it. And that's making it difficult for us because, like I said, anybody, anywhere, if it's a public arena, can come up there and use it. And they will. They will walk their horses. Gee, it's rained for 7 days. My horse hasn't been out. So I'm going to come up there and turn him out. And he's going to race back and forth for 10 or 15 minutes and cause a lot of dust. I want to know who's going to come up here and take care of this place, who's going to mow the lawn, who's going to take care of the graffiti, all that.
Anybody wants us to
You know,
look
and
at it, pass
are
it
you going to
around.
give us enough room for our trash man to come up and pick up our trash? Or are we going to have to take our dumpster, our manure, and schlep it a half a mile down to the street to dump it?
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, and this is BJ's. You can. Okay.
I just passed, I've got a
Hold on,
few
ma'am.
more of these if anybody wants to take a look.
Hold on just a moment. Let me go to Mr. Draymond because I think...
I just wanted to mention, I don't know if you were in the room earlier when we had our council and staff comments, but we've asked for that specific issue, this is Paula, correct? Paula, to come back as a report to the council so that we can get all these and actually be able to agendize speaking on this
Well,
specific
the other
topic.
thing is-
Let me just finish. And also to provide, if possible, some options
Okay.
so that we can
And
help
the other thing
accommodate all of
is,
this.
we have an arena up
Mr.
there.
Mayor?
You want us to take it down. Well, why can't we use the arena while you're doing this? And if we take it down and you put the Riverwalk in, can't we put it back up and use it until,
Okay.
You're saying that if it comes down, nobody can use it.
Ma'am, there's a lot of information
Don
here.
Pearson.
Excuse me. There's a lot of information here that I'm not exactly familiar with. The issue previously addressed is the grant funding for the Riverwalk, and it's somewhat related to your issues, but it would be much better if council got a full report with pictures and an understanding so we could discuss it intelligently and
Okay.
look at what the problem is and what the issues are and how we
Yeah.
can resolve it for all parties concerned. We'd be doing that with all of us. We'll be getting a report. It's going to be coming from which department?
It'll be coming from our Community Services and Parks Department, and I would anticipate that would be coming forth rather quickly based on schedules, so within the next couple of weeks, and we'll make sure to inform the neighborhood that we're having the meeting, at what time and which date.
Yeah, I was going to say, notify the neighborhood, but also if you'll leave your names and your contact information, we'll make sure that you're notified ahead of time so you know exactly what night we'll be discussing it.
Okay.
Leave it as is, or do you
Well,
want more information about what we...
Yeah, she would just like to say something about the fact that this property was deeded to L.A. for
Ma'am, hold on. If she would like to address council,
Go ahead.
these are her choices. Your choices are, and I'm going to, on this portion of the meeting, you can address the funding for the Riverwalk and the grants that we've received. Otherwise, I would invite you to wait and put your card in for the general oral communications, where you'll have a much broader leeway in terms of the items that you'd like to address. So I think you're here ready to speak. Aside from the agendizing of this, you're more than welcome to address the council and the city in the just the next portion of this meeting, which is the oral communication. So I think that's probably the best option for you, and I'm not sure if you were Donna, BJ, or
Just Donna, BJ.
Jennifer. Okay. So I will, the ones that did not get a chance to speak, I'll invite them up at oral communications. Okay, so I think I would put the remaining cards over to oral communications. Is there a motion then? On
There was a motion and there was a second.
Okay, let's take roll call.
Council members Draymond?
Yes.
Friedman?
Yes.
Quintero?
Yes.
Weaver?
Aye.
Mayor Najarian.
Yes. Now the next item.
Next item is oral communications, a 5-minute portion. The discussion is limited time, is not part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. Council may question or respond to a speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. City manager may refer the matter to the appropriate department for an investigation and a report.
Okay, I do feel a little silly calling you back up, ma'am, but this is the way we have to do it. So, Donna, you spoke, sorry. So B.J. Kinsler and Jennifer Hardy, you're more than welcome to address us if you'd like to. And we'll get the rest of the cards or communications.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is a project been in the making, different times, different years, for quite a while now. It's my understanding that back in approximately 1938, 34, something like that, the Los Angeles City signed this property over to City of Glendale signed this property over to Los Angeles to be used as a truck route. It's called the Victory Truck Boulevard, excuse me. And my understanding is that this property still belongs to Los Angeles. Not sure. But that's my understanding from all the information that I've heard. We're not concerned with your Riverwalk. That's fine. Enjoy it. Our concern is with the arena, the equestrian park that they want to build. That's our main concern. Not only for safety's sake, dust, whatever goes along with it. Right now, we even have looky-loos coming up on our property, driving down the barn aisle, which is a no exit. You can drive in, you can't drive out. The way John Pearson wants to reconfigure everything would be a nightmare. He's got everything reversed, where an area that would work horses in is now right out in front next to apartments and our pool, instead over in the back next to the freeway. He wants to move the arena down, which would be like almost directly behind one full building, which would incorporate a California protected oak tree. We have several large trees in that area now. And it would just be, and then there's another area that he showed on the maps, which I don't have one of, where he wants to put a little park with benches, and in that area is where our trash truck picks up, backs up to turn around and comes back down the driveway. And when I asked John Pearson about these things, we'll look into them. So what about the trees? Got giant trees back there now. We'll just mow them down. No consideration at all. So there's our concern is safety, not only for pedestrians, horses. There's an accident. How are they going to access to get up there with a truck and trailer to pick up an injured horse?
Ma'am, why don't you speak into the microphone? So, although we can hear you, I'm not sure that the audio goes through this.
Sorry, I'm used to bouncing around. Yeah, we're concerned about safety, rezoning to get this area into, be able to do what you want to do. I believe it has to be rezoned because it is City of Los Angeles now. You know, if there's an injury, they can't get an ambulance up there, this little path that they want to build. This is, you can pass this around. This is what I have from one of the, okay, this is flood channel, river, apartments. You want to pass that around and look at that? The whole big huge map. But there's a lot of safety issues, traffic, the extra people in the neighborhood, looky-loos. These arenas will be much smaller than what they are now. Why would anybody want to come there? There's like 8 horses in our area of the apartments. There are approximately 6 or 8 horses in the general neighborhood. And those arenas would be way smaller than what Martinez Arena is. Why would they want to come over there? I mean, we have functioning arenas now. We're willing to take them down if they were in the way of your Riverwalk, but we want to be able to put them back up. And I'm sorry, but I could just go on and on and on. I mean, I've got pages and pages and lists and lists. Concern is safety issues, taking down our arena, not being able to put it up. You know, saving the trees, especially a California oak. So when you have another meeting, I'll readdress to see what you came up with and what you dug out of all of this, and continue it from there. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And the next speaker is, I'm sorry, I got your names all mixed up. Jennifer Hardy. Anna.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just a little bit concerned. I don't know all the details. It's like a bit vague about this river walk. I just know that I've been at the apartment building for 20 years, and I've always had horses, and I know that in the early 90s they put down our arena because they had to put in some sort of drainage system, and my horse started, we didn't have a turnout, so I actually had to move my horse to Valencia, because every time I rode him he would freak out, because if you know anything about horses, especially thoroughbreds, they need to be exercised, and if you're working you can't exercise them every day, so the turnout is a good way for them to get rid of, just walking around to get rid of their extra energy. So it worries me that we don't really know how long we're going to be without the arena. A couple of months ago there were signs everywhere where the arena was, where the round pen was. You have to take it down. That's all they said. So it was all a little bit confusing, and we're like, well, what's happening? And we don't really know what's happening. And so we're worried that we're going to put the arena down, they're going to put the arena down, and then they might stop doing whatever they're doing, and we may not have an arena for a year, because things like that could happen. And so, we want to know sort of exactly what's sort of going on and how long we're going to be without an arena, because then I will probably, want to move my horses. And I've been there for 20 years, apart from the time when they did the drainage system. So it's just, mine's pretty simple. Just we don't want to be without the arena too long, and we don't really know, what's really happening about the Riverwalk, how long they're going to tear down. Because this is sort of like our place, so now they're going to tear it down and do stuff. So that's just my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Mohill, followed by Tammy Relier.
Good evening, Mayor Najarian and council members. A Montrose Twister. My name is Mike Mohill, long-term resident of Glendale. Councilman John Draymond acknowledged he had a flood in his condo in 2009, and he spoke to his longtime friend, Hachik Zagarian, who said could help him get payment terms working with National Fire and Service. National Fire was a subcontractor of ADI. To date, Mr. Draymond continues not to show the public his insurance claim for the flood damage at his condo, nor has he shown the public building permits required by the city building codes, because there are none. Mr. Draymond last week said ADI did not work in his condo, but the subcontractor of ADI did the work. Thus, they had a vested interest for ADI to receive public housing money. A witness noticed that the ADI architect was on site at Draymond's residence during the renovation. When questioned about taking out building permits, Mr. Draymond continued to be silent again Tuesday evening. Why did Councilman Draymond and his ADI subcontractors circumvent the permit laws of Glendale? Are council members above the law? Who paid for Mr. Draymond's condo renovation? Was it an insurance company or his contractor, or folks, the taxpayers of Glendale? Why would Mr. Draymond get easy payment terms from National Fire Systems and Service? We know that $1,000 in campaign money was reported on Mr. Draymond's 460 campaign disclosure form on May 2007 by National Fire Systems. Then he went ahead and voted on issues involving ADI. Mike Thomason, president of National Fire Systems and Service, told the LA Times his hiring was linked to ADI, which he said, quote, did not want to be involved with that directly, end of quote. So they offered his company the job. Mike Thomason, president of National Fire Systems and Service, told the LA Times, again, he was not linked to ADI. Councilman Draymond, where is the loan payment or payment plans worked out with Hachik Zagarian, the alleged money conduit for ADI? The public wants to know, was the condo remodel a thank you note from ADI and their subcontractors? Mr. Draymond, please tell your constituents the truth. The voters need to know this before the April election. Thank you. My name is Mike Mohill, long-term resident of Glendale, your friendly city watchdog.
Tammy Relier, followed by Herbert Milano.
Good evening, Council. I'm here on an entirely different subject. I'm here today to express my concerns and alert the public about Keppel's recent magnet school designation. I know this is out of your jurisdiction, but perhaps you may find this interesting as well. Although it may seem at first blush that this is a good thing for the neighborhood, as I'm going through the enrollment process to now enroll my school-age child, I have been informed by Keppel that as a result of the magnet school designation, my son, as well as others that are trying to enroll their now school-age children, is now based on a lottery system. In response to my concerns, I've been told by school officials that I should see this as a great opportunity because now the community has lots of choices. And to my understanding, these choices are primarily the dual language immersion programs. What I don't understand is that prior to this application, families already interested in dual immersion already had access to enroll into these schools even before the magnet designation. Unfortunately, it appears to me that there isn't much of a choice for families who live in the Keppel school zone and simply want to enroll their child to receive general education. For those residents like myself who have bought in this neighborhood and have significantly invested, does it seem reassuring to you to hear that the lottery system with several tiers is a good choice for you? Does hearing from administrators that my chances are good, but reading on their website that the enrollment process is a random selection process according to the federally approved MSAP grant priorities, and while Glendale Unified School District residents have priority over non-residents, it still does not guarantee new student admission to magnet elementary programs. Does that sound reassuring? I have deep appreciation for the visual and performing arts as well as the dual language immersion programs. However, based on this new criteria, I feel it's reasonable to question if this significant change could have some major impact on the local neighborhood. I want the public to realize that this issue affects every homeowner who resides in the school zones, and we must get past the dollar signs and make sure that the district fully addresses the impact of these decisions. For example, I'm not an expert in property values, but when the time comes for a homeowner who may want or need to sell your home, I'm concerned this could be a deal breaker for homeowners. Why would any family or professional couple planning to start a family invest in this neighborhood now, not having any idea where their child is going to be enrolled? What about the traffic issues? I would also like the district to address fully, where was the community outreach? Why wasn't there a letter sent to the public alerting them of the significant change? Interestingly enough, the last couple of days I received this very beautiful flyer from the school district about the school bond, wanting residents like me to support them and vote to support this bond. Why wasn't something like this sent out to all the residents, alerting them that enrollment is going to change? Enrollment now for Keppel was unusually early. In fact, I think it's already expired. I'm very concerned for the neighborhood for the many families that don't know about this because it's outside of the scope of the normal registration. In closing, I feel it's important to mention that because myself and other parents have been really pressing the school district, they are now wanting to have meetings to reach out to the neighborhood. But I still urge the public to get involved and to email the school district and express your concerns. As homeowners and residents, we should have a voice and we should be taken in consideration when district decisions could ultimately affect the quality of our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Relier. Please stick around. As you know, we'll be having a chance to respond and perhaps ask you some questions at the end of the oral communications. Herbert Milano, followed by Margaret Hammond.
Good evening, Mayor Najarian, members of the City Council. In a minute or so, I'll have a PowerPoint to display a graph on the trends, financial trends of the City of Glendale for the past 10 years. Today, as President Barack Obama addresses the nation and discusses the financial issues that face us, the importance of our having good employment, the significant and huge deficit that is national, it reflects significantly on the status of the economy locally as well. We have a deficit here in the City of Glendale. So does the county, so does the state of California, and hundreds of cities across the U.S. And these deficits do not come by accident. It has been claimed in these chambers many times that the dire situation that we have financially is due to the economy here. It is partially true, but the real reason, when you look at the financial reports, particularly the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, and all the ones that I looked at for the City of Glendale for the past 10 years, it shows that property tax revenues have increased every single year, significantly. And so I wondered, how is it that when property taxes increase, when utility rates increase, when transfers from the water and power to the general fund increase, and where all the fees that we pay have increased significantly in the past 10 years, why do we have a deficit? So I'd like to show you a couple of graphs, and I'll bring back the graph that I brought up last week. And it is my contention that the reason why we are in such financial straits has to do with the amount of gross pay increases to the city employees, particularly the police, fire, and city managers. In addition to that, we have linked to that payroll the pension benefits. Here we have the accrued pension liability for Glendale in the past 10 years, growing from $560 million to $1.3 billion. Out of that amount, about 200 is unfunded. I would like to add that there's another accrued liability that does not appear on this table, and it is found on the CAFR here, generally on page 74 or 50, one of those, which is another $100 million of unfunded liability to post-employment benefits that is given to the city employees. That's on top of that number. But there's another very troubling trend. Let me have the next slide, please. That is the trend on the long-term debt. Now, I put in here that it's a bonded debt, but that's only partially it's only a partial amount of the $470 million of long-term debt that the city has incurred. We started the decade with about $169 million in debt. We have increased it by $300 million. So let's go over that. $300 million of additional debt during the past 10 years. Add to that roughly $300 million of unfunded liabilities. And then we still have to add to that the potential significant liability of the $1.3 billion in pension benefits, to which this city will become accountable because we guarantee it. We guarantee those benefits at the rate of 7.5% of the return of those investments. That has translated into additional expenses from about $8 million a year in terms of the contributions to CalPERS to $24 million this year. And we expect that number to increase significantly in the years to come. That's money that doesn't go into roads, that doesn't go into infrastructure, that doesn't go into parks, that doesn't go into the quality of life. And this is the conversation that I don't hear in these chambers. I hear stories and personal anecdotes, but when it comes to coming here and facing the public with the issues and the trends of what has transpired in the city of Glendale in the past 10 years, we don't hear that conversation. It is my hope, my real hope, that this city council start addressing the significant financial bind in which this city council and previous city council has placed us since 2001. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Apologize for the audio difficulties that we were having. We're still trying to track that down. Margaret Hammond.
Good evening, Your Honor, members of council, staff, and audience. My name is Margaret Hammond. We criticize the newspapers and saying they're not telling the truth and this and that. But then when we look to our daily newspaper and see and the reports of both great acts of human bravery and selflessness, the one incident being the 20-year-old intern who knocked away the man who was shooting at Gifford, and he had only been with her for 3 days, and pushed him away from her and then kept her from dying by helping her medically. Then the older woman who was shot already, and she saw that the man was trying to get out some more bullets, whatever the clip is, and while two other men were wrestling with him, she grabbed the clip and ended up sitting on the man's feet, and she herself had been shot. This is in the paper. I thought, my God, how many of us would do that? We'd be, she did it just completely without thought. But then, on the other hand, we have the farmers up near San Simeon who shot 3 helpless zebras. And the worst of that story is that they turned around and immediately called the taxidermist to come and take the skins and make rugs out of them. I mean, how horrendous people can be. I mean, we have the wonderful people that, as I said, didn't give a second thought to taking care of the shooter. And then we have this type of person. And then we have another one in the community of Arcadia, close by, and they are cutting down 200 old sycamore and oaks. I know the area very well. I work near there. And I know the reason is that it's flood control and it's for the benefit of the public safety. I mean, we can't argue with that point. But then, in that same paper, the next story is all about the extradition of 2 Israeli brothers who are being extradited to the United States for being amongst the largest ecstasy distributors in the world, and they have connections to the San Fernando Boys Group. Now, we know who they are. Were they not the ones that was involved, that we had a citizen from Burbank who traded guns for drugs, and they shot the young policeman in Burbank? So here we are. We have all of this going on. And we think, well, my God, why should we even worry about what happens in our city? But then we have Mr. Caruso chopping at the bit to get his neighbor's properties. He's never going to be satisfied. We are still paying $3.5 million interest a year on the $49 million bond that we took out to buy the properties which we gave to him, and free and clear for his ownership, eternal ownership. Now, you may be fed up listening to me. I don't care. I mean, is he going to want us to give him some more property again? And why should Mr. Patel and other people, the other person apparently lost his business because he couldn't stand the noise and the mess and whatnot. You talk about horses making a mess and noise and so forth, or building. But here we are. The man lost his business, his recording business, because of all that. And then Mr. Patel, who had a letter from Mr. Caruso, stood here and told the city council that, and Mr. Caruso was not supposed to interfere with his property on Orange Street, putting his dumpsters there. But he completely ignored that and did whatever he wanted, and nobody did anything to him. Just like the large signboards that he has over there on the corner of Central, bigger than my house. And he was not supposed to do that. That was not going to be allowed. And it goes on and on. I don't understand this. What about the rest of us people here in Glendale? Do we not count? And Mr. Caruso isn't even from Glendale. And he owns a good part of it now and seems to be going on and on looking for more. So I'm just saying it's not right. Thank you.
Thank you. Betty and Jack Wagner? Sorry, I didn't give you much warning on that. You're next, yes.
Good evening, Mayor Nazarian and the council and the staff. I'm here tonight with Betty, my wife, and the rest of our family to thank you all for what you did. Fourth, I believe. We haven't seen any of the, I understand, a very nice tribute to our son Thomas, who died a day or so after Christmas. You have a photo. You said, would it be next week you'd see photos? Well, you'll see a photo tonight of him taken on Christmas Day, and 2 days later he was dead. We don't know yet the reason why. But it is a marvelous act on the part of all of you. I don't know if any of you knew him even, but...
Well, Ara did.
Perhaps, I don't know. He's lived in a group home lately, but he lived 49 of his 51 years in Glendale. Schools helped him, the doctors helped him, the police helped him,
They knew him.
the fire department helped him, the college helped him in many ways, and the city and everyone in here, whoever contacted him that we know of, treated him with respect, even though he was a special person. And so you have no idea how much it means to all of us to what you've done. Now you've seen a picture of him. And I'm going to add a little lightness to the meeting. He was a wanderer, age 7 to 17. And when he would take off, despite the fact we had other children to worry about, that he would call Tom's wandering. Answer to the police department was, are the dogs with him? Because if they knew the dogs were with him,
It was
they'd
easier
say,
to find, yeah.
watch for Tom and watch for the dog. So they knew him. The fire department, too, when he would, he'd wander, and sometimes he'd go to the fire department. They'd show him around and that. But then in the schools, he went as far as 11th grade at Glendale High. But the time he broke into a meeting of the principal with the staff, it was not exactly appreciated. But after that, he had a position at Glendale College in the library, reshelving books. Well, he developed what the librarian later termed the Tommy method, which was to reshelve the books on the basis of the size of the opening that he found for each book. And so they said they preferred the Dewey Decimal System rather than that. But there are many incidents like that. But the one thing I think you might have appreciated, on his 50th birthday, after he'd been a James Bond lover all his life. He'd seen every movie, he had every book on that. The children decided to have a James Bond birthday party for him. And so they planned everything. The girls all came as Bond girls, and he was in a group home for 6 boys. And Dr. Walters owned it, got tuxedos for all of the 6 boys there, and dressed them in the tuxedos. Now, in jumble shops and that, the price for tuxedos is not very high, not too many people go for them there. But anyway, so our son Chris, the youngest son, picked him up on the premise that I'm going to take you to dinner. And he said, can we go to Denny's? His favorite place to eat, Denny's. So he came up, and he didn't know why he was wearing this suit, with the bow tie and everything. But then when he came in, and there were 50 or 60 people there.
Oh, we had about 100 in our
There was
backyard.
100 there anyway. And he looked around, and he was surprised. He said, can we still go to Denny's? Anyway, so thank you so much for what you've done and what you do every day of the week here. And we're so proud of this city. And all these people have contributed through the years to the full life that he has had. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. You did give us his photo. He certainly was a handsome man, and as we expressed last week,
Yes, I can
we
hear
share in your grief, and your loss is the city's loss. So,
well, as our daughter Mary Ellen wrote this, she's a teacher, and she found out Tommy had passed away. And by the time she got to her house, she had to sit down at her computer and write what Tommy meant, what she learned from Tommy. And you can read what she wrote. It's our children, our other children, all feel that Tommy was a tremendous asset to our family, taught us so much, and the whole neighborhood. I mean, he was a wanderer, and he met a lot of people, and he taught a lot of people respect for special people. And thank you very much.
Yes, thank you all.
okay, comments from the council. Friedman.
Just a few brief comments. First, to the Horsey people in the back of the room. As you heard, you will have a much fuller airing out of all this. We need to see maps. We need to have more information. And it sounds like you do as well. But I did want you to know that I am a horse owner myself, so I understand what a turnout is and an arena is, and what horse owners have to put up with, especially in a dense area like the Rancho area. It's my hope that we can come up with some kind of compromise that addresses your concerns, but also gives the community the Riverwalk. So we'll see what we can do with that. Second, in terms of Ms. Relia's comment, and I've had several emails about this, as a resident of the Keppel area, I was really surprised to hear that the school board had done this magnet designation without any outreach to me or my neighbors. And I completely understand the concern of taking what's a really beloved neighborhood school away from the neighborhood. And I want more information. I don't understand it. I don't know why it was done without any community input. And I don't know if it's too late to do anything about it, but I agree that it's something we should all be worried about. I'm very worried about it. I don't know what we can do as a city council except voice our concerns as we hear them from the residents, kind of echo them up here on the pulpit. And then last, I just had to respond a little bit to Mr. Milano. He's not here. He never stays to hear our comments, so maybe that's why he asks why the council doesn't address his concerns. Maybe he just isn't around to hear us. But I do, while I agree that all cities, and probably in the entire country, and certainly in California, have great challenges when it comes to the pension systems and the rising cost of health insurance, which of course is out of our hands, to assert that this council hasn't tried to address these and doesn't continue to try to address these, I think is really unfair. While cities around us, like Burbank and Los Angeles, are giving raises to their employees, this city's had not even given a cost of living increase, as long as I've been on council, has had a hard hiring freeze for a number of years, and just recently, when we couldn't come to terms with our largest employee group, voted a very painful and controversial vote to reduce their pay across the board. Glendale is one of the only cities where the employees pay not only the full share of the employees' part of the CalPERS payments, but also pays part of the employer's share. And I can tell you that other cities and other agencies, a lot of them pay the entire share of both of those, the employee and the employer's share. So this council has been very conservative, and most of our employee groups have really been great at working with us. The fire department, who Mr. Milano mentioned, voluntarily tore up the contract that they had that would have guaranteed them cost of living increases, and really worked with us and didn't take those increases and gave up some of their benefits to try to help us out of what's a statewide fiscal crisis. So I do believe that while we have work to do, we've been very conservative, we've been prudent, and we continue to try to find answers and solutions to these challenges. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to answer him a little bit. Thank you.
Mr. Weaver.
I was just thinking about that Keppel situation. I've sat here 14 years, and I can't remember how many times people have come in on different issues and accused the council and the city of not informing the public of what we're doing. We didn't outreach enough. Times have we gone back, stopped what we're doing, and gone out for more community outreach. We all have seen that. And here's one, I didn't even know anything about it. I never saw a word in the paper. I know it's not our jurisdiction, but did the school board initiate this? Did the staff initiate it? Were they talking to each other and there was agreement? I mean, something seems to be missing in the loop. And I just hope enough people heard this tonight that they will be calling the school district and asking a lot of questions, maybe more outreach. God, I can't believe I live more than half a mile from where I went to elementary school. That would mean if it was a magnet school, gosh, where would I have been taken? Across town? Because I couldn't go to school right down the hill from me? That had been disastrous. I mean, I can't conceive of that. I hope the public will step to the plate and visit the school district board meetings and have something to say.
Thank you. Mr. Quintero.
I feel the same way. I believe in the importance of neighborhood schools, and this is simply the wrong location. Magnet schools, I think, are a great idea. They're innovative and let kids function, sort of explore their interest and so forth. But this particular location, I was stunned. I've received a number of emails, and obviously people in the neighborhood feel the same way. But after the first email, I started thinking, the city of Glendale spent millions of dollars developing the Pacific Edison complex, which is an elementary school, a library, a beautiful park. Now we're going to have the swimming pool there. Across the street, the old Edison site, across the street it was supposed to be park space. Somehow the school district decided not to do that. That was supposed to be park space. That building is still there. The last time I inquired, they mentioned that it was being used for teacher training. I don't know exactly what it's being used for, but I suggest that's a much better place to put a magnet school than in the Northwest. And I hope the school board will show some leadership and some vision and rethink what they're doing. I hope they're not going to not listen to the neighborhood and not listen to the community and just go ahead with their plans, because I think they've just really blown it on this one as far as I'm concerned.
Mr. Mayor, if I could add one other thing. Clark Magnet is doing great. Clark Magnet was an empty school site. And they created, and they've drawn by lottery kids from all high schools in Glendale. That's not the same as Mark Keppel. It's occupied. So I just can't figure the logic. Two don't compare.
Mr. Draymond?
Well, that last point in particular, Mr. Weaver, was something I was just going to mention as a graduate of when it was Clark Junior High School. No, it was an empty school at the time when it became a magnet school. So we weren't displacing the students, and furthermore, we weren't upsetting the sort of the desires of the neighborhood with regard to where their children were going to go to school. My youngest nephew graduated from Keppel. My sister-in-law used to teach there. One of the things that we do as elected officials that is really one of the most enjoyable things we get to do is to travel to each of our elementary schools, to read at the schools, to visit with the students, maybe be a principal for a day, and so forth. And Keppel's one of my favorite. I've been back numerous times. A couple of other, and I won't repeat the things that have been mentioned so far, but I also want to add, one of the concerns has to do with the traffic issues there, and the pedestrian safety there, and the traffic safety there. We've gone through an incredible convulsion there within the community. This city organization working hand in hand with the Glendale Unified School District to try to bring something beneficial and useful in the way of public safety there out of a horrible tragedy that occurred there with a student being knocked down and killed. Magnet School is, if we're talking about traffic and increasing traffic, wow, is that going to do it? Now, I'm not ready to sit here right now and talk about the reasoning and on the part of the school board. I haven't heard it yet, so I haven't heard that side of it yet, and I still want to do that, and I think we should. But as I say, it's been pointed out, this is not our jurisdiction, but certainly, and my colleagues have alluded to it, I didn't do that, I promise. Those are the audio gods attacking us. I've received, I can't tell you how many emails, personal contacts over the weekend, my goodness. So it would be nice if we could get some answers. So at least we're informed. I mean, I don't know about my colleagues, but I know absolutely nothing about this. Nothing. I mean, my BlackBerry just began to erupt with residents in the Northwest area saying, what's going on? So I do think we need some information, Mr. Mayor.
Well, actually, Mr. Draymond kind of took the words out of my mouth, but I was just going to remind people that we've been working on the safe and healthy routes to schools, a large part of which is to try to encourage people to either walk their children to school and then later when the children are older to teach the children to walk themselves or to bicycle themselves, so that not only do the children get the health benefits of walking when they spend a lot of their time sitting in front of TVs and computers and in classrooms, but we would reduce traffic and make the area safer. And this takes that and just throws it out the window. This is busing kids all over town, and to me it's really at odds with what we've been trying to accomplish as a city and trying to make a more walkable and livable city. So
thank you. I do agree with all my colleagues. Ms. Weaver?
I just want to ask, don't you or one of us meet with the school district on a monthly basis?
I don't believe you had any
Ever heard
forewarning
anything
of this,
about
did you?
this when you interchange dialogue?
We meet with the city manager and I, as your appointee, Mr. Mayor, meet with the representatives of the Glendale Unified School District every month, and we also meet with as part of the Glendale Leadership Roundtable every other month. From that includes the school, the city, school district, the city, and the college board. And not a word was mentioned about it. We talked about, the bond measure S and so on, but not a word about this. So I am a little surprised.
I do agree with all my colleagues' comments. My BlackBerry also erupted from residents seeking help with a sense of anger, sadness, betrayal. I think many of them expressed a sense of betrayal that the school board had done this without reaching out to them. And it's something that we try to do at the City Council in everything that we do, and we often hear that we didn't do enough, but we nevertheless spend so much time doing that. The safety issue is very critical to me. We are working hard to encourage students to walk to school, and Presumably, the magnet school will draw from students all over the district, and these are people who will students who will have to be driven to the school from the farther outreaches, adding to the congestion, adding to the air pollution, adding to the danger for the students that are walking. So I'm hoping that the school board will rethink their issues, rethink their decision. I don't think there's anything we can do. I understand they're exempt from much of our decision-making. There's no CEQA. Would this call any CEQA issues, Mr. Howard? We're talking about perhaps diesel buses coming in and additional vehicle trips.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, this item isn't on the agenda, so I caution against a lengthy dialogue and debate about it. However, I can tell you that the school district is not exempt from CEQA.
Well, maybe we can get a report back where we can discuss this more fully and determine what CEQA requirements were necessary, what did they go through. In any event, I do feel for the residents such as Ms. Relier and the prospect that their child or children would not be able to attend a neighborhood school and be forced to seek schooling elsewhere. But let's perhaps, if there's I think clearly there's a second, there's interest in examining what exactly happened and what role the city may play in helping out these aggrieved neighbors. Anything else? Ms. Spears.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, I too wanted to comment on some of the issues that Mr. Milano brought forward last week as well as this week, and to echo what Councilwoman Friedman said. This council has made some very, very difficult decisions in the last 3 to 4 years as it pertains to the city's budget, and they have not been easy on the City Council or the staff. As the costs of PERS have increased because of the investment losses that PERS has suffered because of the market downturn, Glendale has addressed, and it's been in the forefront of addressing many of these issues with our city employees and our employee associations, and the associations have been very good about coming to the table and having those discussions with the city. As Ms. Friedman mentioned, employees have picked up additional cost sharing as well as a second tier for all new hires for miscellaneous as well as fire. City employees have also agreed to 3 lower steps in terms of the salary structure, and that means a 15% reduction off the bat when somebody is hired on. It's important to note that other cities are not doing the employee cost sharing in terms of PERS pickup. We are in the forefront of that. Most other cities are now beginning to look at employee cost sharing of CalPERS. As we said, employees in Glendale pick up 100% of the employees' share. Other cities mostly do not. And our employees also are picking up part of the city's, the employer's share, from 0.5% to 2%. And I think that's important to note as well. You don't see that in Southern California or California. So with that, I would just like to say that our employees have worked very, very diligently with all of you to make sure that we bring to the table what's necessary in terms of a balanced budget for this community. And I know that our employees will continue to work hard at that. So I just wanted to comment on Mr. Milano's comments of last week as well as this week.
Mr. Weaver?
Just to add on to that, I have had many discussions with Jim Starbird, the issue. And a number of times he goes out and meets with other city managers throughout the region. And when he tells them what we're doing in terms of cost sharing with the employees and whatever, they're shocked. How can you do that? We can't even begin to address that with our employees. They can't believe what we've been able to do. Mr. Milano to come in here and attack us, let's see, he lives in Tujunga. He ought to go down to the city of L.A. They got a bigger problem than we do. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no other comments, Mr.
I have one other comment, Mr. Mayor, and it's not, if you'll indulge me, I neglected to make it earlier during council and staff comments, if I may. I had a request from some residents, as you know, in the far north area of the city, where the county, unincorporated county area abuts the city of Glendale. I've had a number of complaints, actually, but finally a specific request There is this area that is the Ocean View overpass over the 210 freeway, just north of our city line, if you will, city border, that for some time has been used to park enormous big rigs, just enormous big rigs. That is the collection point for them all. And I'm wondering whether, I don't know who the appropriate city staff member would be, but is there a way we can contact someone in Supervisor Antonivich's office or the supervisor himself and ask them for some assistance there? I mean, these are not small trucks. These are giant big rigs that you would normally see on a highway hauling large cargo. They're just lined up.
Yeah, I've noticed the same thing.
After week.
Absolutely. It's sort of, I mean, it's obvious that someone is not wanting to pay the fees required to store them.
Right. They're basically storing them there on the streets, but it's there adjacent to our residence, and that's sort of part of the view they get.
Thank you, Mr. Draymond. You did bring that to my attention earlier, and I did have a discussion with the supervisor and his transportation deputy, Michael Cano, and they said they would be looking into it. This was maybe 3-4 weeks ago when I think you showed me the emails that were out there. And of course, I see it myself as I go up Ocean View. So maybe we can follow up and find out what we can do to stop that. Okay, we are going to adjourn in the memory
of Reserve Officer Robert DeBach.
Okay, with that motion and the second, we are adjourned.